I am Vitold, and man, oh man, this KTM 890 adventure made me sick from stress about what next it would make me do. It is a silent tiger. Well, it's orange. It's super powerful, and once it attacks, you're lost. And here's my honest review of it. So I'm not going to make things sweeter than they are. I also rarely get all that excited, but I definitely got excited already twice on current adventure motorcycles, counting both the large capacity ones and the mid-size ones. The first was on a BMW F850GS on a twisty road, and then the second time exactly in the same place where I got this 890 adventure from, but then it was a 1290 Super Adventure in the R variant, and the R here makes a difference versus the S. And now it's the third time with this 890 adventure. I've ridden dozens of motorcycles, mostly adventure ones, all large adventure ones that are currently on the market, but this 890 adventure is just freaking true gold. KTM should sell them for 50% more than they currently do, just to reflect how much fun a regular rider can have on one of these bikes. However, once you realize all that, it turns out that the bike is mostly dedicated to single males. Sorry, but that's the reality, and I will explain. But don't cross yourselves out yet. I will start in order. So with the position on this bike, and in order to move it from the dealership's parking lot, I had to lift my 890 Adventure and actually more of its rear part. I don't exactly know why I had such an idea, but likely because once you come close to this bike, it seems compact in a way. Not small, but manageable again. It's not too tall, it's not too wide, nor too bulky. It's just how it should be for somebody like me. It's without even sitting on it yet, by the way. So I moved it, I sat on it, and the feeling stayed. The feeling of it being quite manageable physically. Fairly light, not too tall, nothing is blocking the view. It's not too wide down low there too. You know, it's just fun to just sit on it. The seat got me worried as it appeared hard and wide in the beginning. The first feeling faded away, and it turned out to be actually really good after a while. Not too hard, which is difficult to process for me somehow, but because of it being wide, your weight is distributed very evenly, so nothing is bothering you, nothing is poking you from down there. It is a good seat there. It may be a bit wide in the front area, as I could feel the edges under my thighs when supporting myself with a leg or legs when standing in the traffic lights. The seat height is 84 centimeters or 86 centimeters. I am 1 meter 83 centimeters tall or 6 feet tall, and in the end I decided to leave it in the lower position, so 84 centimeters, and it's fine for me. I might consider moving it up before a longer trip. It might be useful to achieve lower knee angle, which actually isn't bad for me at all already, being as it is. If you need, you may get a 1.5 centimeter lower seat from KTM and even lower the whole bike by further 2.5 centimeters with lowered suspension. And by the way, check out the chairs like my electrically adjustable 7G11 from Power Seats, with which I work closely, by the way. It's got 18-way electric adjustment, so if you sit a lot behind the desk, it may be for you. Now, in the 890 Adventure, the only trouble that there is for me in this bike, and also was in the 1290S and R, is gear lever, which is way too high for me, and it's a pain in the ass to reduce gears. I cannot do it without lifting my whole foot. I don't know why they do that. I tried riding and standing on the foot pegs, but the result was still the same, and I needed to lift my left leg up to push the gear lever down. There allegedly is some adjustment according to the KTM dealer, but it's not that easy to just, come and move it yourself. Check this out, as to me it can be an issue, but considering other things, I could live with that easily. I'm also not a fan of the round mirrors, as I couldn't see enough in them. The same dimensions, just square ones would be, I think, much better. So we have established that the bike feels light, it's not intimidating, and has a comfortable seat. But all of that is nothing comparing to what happens when you start moving and when you let the bike breathe. My first experience on a faster road was being a little bit suspicious. I had the bike in some higher gear, I opened the throttle at low RPM, and this thing just started shooting forward. I thought, okay, it's now got 105 horsepower and 100 newton meters of torque after this update recently. It's a 2023 model year, by the way. There is a 2-cylinder inline engine with 889 cubic centimeters of displacement, and its parameters are pretty much like in a Suzuki V-Strom 1050 and Honda Africa Twin 1100, so bikes from a higher segment. Actually, it's got more power than the Africa Twin, which has 102 versus 105 horsepower in this mid-sized KTM. Honda has 105 Nm of torque, while here we've got 100. So close. But Africa weighs at least 229 kilograms with fuel, while this KTM weighs around 15 kilograms less at around 215 with fuel, so it is lighter. But in terms of performance, so especially acceleration, this KTM, it just flies somehow. It is totally crazy, and this means that it's not only at the highest RPM, but all the way from the bottom. It constantly wants to lift its front wheel, but traction control does a fantastic job here. It's really top notch. There is no sudden slowdown, and it is just perfectly calibrated here, just, dosing the power, not letting you flip over. Same in the corners. When I was getting too cocky and excited on the exit, it would successfully save myself. But that would only encourage me to push it more and more. Anytime you want it, it just freaking explodes forward like it was 50% more powerful. Some bikes do that, but at what cost? And I don't mean fuel, I don't mean engine oil longevity or wearing down the components. I mean how it feels when the bike reaches those highest RPM, where most of the bikes have the most power and torque. Some bikes feel like they're losing their breath by doing that, and they will have to puke afterwards, like each of us after running 300 meters on a treadmill. But here on this 890 Adventure, it does all that effortlessly. It almost literally asks you for more. Well, maybe not literally, and also maybe it doesn't exactly ask. As me having so much fun with it, I would quite often hit the rev limiter, so I don't suppose the bike would ask me for more when I would do that. But a similar thing would happen to me on a Ducati Multistrada, but the V4. This KTM may be having a bit too short gears, especially the first one, so you might get to the rev limiter, to the top RPM very quickly. Maybe it's helpful to have shorter gearing when off-roading, but here there's so much juice that I don't think it's necessary. It is so full of fire that all you can do is to try to hold the bar strong enough not to fly away. Quick shifter in this bike is a very helpful because of that. It generally works as intended, and it is quick and it is precise. Once I think it hasn't switched up, and instead I just hit the rev limiter with a surprise on my face, and once a similar thing happened, but I guess that at least that second time I just did not move the gear lever fully up. It's got a pretty long, in this case, range of motion of the lever, and it may be because of that. You've got to be decisive when using the quick shifter, and it's then generally fine. Most of the time I was very happy with it, as it was doing the job. Downshifting, well, you've got to kick it hard though, like I see many other motorcycles in the segment. Changing gears with clutch, then everything works very light, very smoothly, and it's a really comfortable and pleasant experience. The transmission is very precise. I've never missed a gear otherwise, and only when pushing the bike super hard and using a quick shifter, I had those 2 missed gears, likely because of my own fault. But overall, I'm very happy, and I consider it a good transmission, a good combo of a transmission cooperating with an engine. On the 6th gear, I could ride at 60 kilometers per hour, open the throttle, and just accelerate with minimal shaking. Really impressive. Then at around 5,000 RPM, it starts vibrating to the point that I kept noticing it, but then you just open the throttle wide open, which is what you usually do with how you fix things on KTM, and you just go with the flow. It's this type of a bike, and that's why I wouldn't even look at the current gear that I was in, because the bike just pulls regardless, and it pulls hard. Now the worry here is that because of being so provocative, so fun, and so bloody addictive, you, just like me, will not want to stop. Now imagine, if you need to imagine, that you've got a wife, a girlfriend, or you're dating someone and you've got this KTM, you would have to make an extremely difficult decision in every moment of your life in your free time. Should you spend time with a wife, girlfriend, or whoever there is, go for a date with them, or jump on this 890 adventure, right? Anywhere you want, however you want. And God, I just truly wanted to keep riding here and there, just coming up with new ideas where to go, like what to do with the bike. It's very similar to 1290 Super Adventure R in this matter. If I would have raised the seat by those 2 centimeters to 86 centimeters, now I'm thinking, it might feel even more like that one, like the bigger one, with an even more aggressive position that is encouraging you to push even further, to push it even more. But that's why I believe that this bike, being a competition to everything else in your life that you do with pleasure, is simply super dangerous. To anyone, especially who is not single. It can make you, single forever. And I cannot state how cool it is actually, this bike. Well, not the fact of doing that, or the risk of having that done to you. So all that applies, or at least it does until you take it out on a warmer day. Yes, now we're talking about sacrifices and sacrifices. The cooling system, yeah, it cannot handle all that fun. I get it, but you've got to be prepared that the engine will be frying your legs like French fries. Also, well, the potatoes could become pretty crunchy. Chips after a few rides if you continue doing that. It really gets hot. Fans start getting loud, but you still cannot stop pushing the bike, so you're basically causing yourself pain for fun or in exchange for some fun. Heat management is bad here, and increasing speeds, lowering RPM and staying this way for a little bit longer doesn't help that much that quickly. If you live in a very hot place, damn it, that would be hard. I would think twice. I would think twice how to protect my legs and some other things from getting fried at least. Should that be a deal breaker for you, get a 1290 Super Adventure R and you will get similar experiences, just a bigger and still a little bit more bulky motorcycle and significantly more expensive. It also doesn't turn as well at higher speeds as this 890 Adventure does. That's going to be for another time, by the way, but that's interesting. The 890 Adventure has a 21-inch front spoked rim, a large and also larger than standard 18-inch rim in the rear, but it's quite nimble at higher speeds as well, which is cool. You can feel that it needs to be pushed a bit there, but it's not like it's fighting you very much in order to not turn, but it rather feels like it's asking you to help it a little bit. And once you do, once you push it to lean more, it does fine and it stays the way you want it basically. Adding a throttle doesn't influence it much, and it does not suddenly start straightening up like some other motorcycles in the segment. And that is really good here with this 890. At low speeds, it's also really good, so I'm stunned. It keeps a straight line, even at crawling speeds. It is well balanced, so riding between the cars is easy. Man, this is really something. The handlebar is also not too wide. It's actually of width that feels somehow natural to me. KTM generally keeps going with narrower handlebars than its competitors, and I feel that it's the same here in this middleweight segment motorcycle with this 890 Adventure after me noticing that on 1290. So here, having it narrower, I really enjoyed it. It's useful in the city, it's easier to ride. Another smart thing that I like is those handguards that do not stick like crazy to the sides, but they protect your hands and grips, and that's it. So filtering traffic is really great. If you're in Europe, you get it. You get what filtering traffic means. In the US, I know in some states, or in most states, except for I think only California, it's actually illegal. I'm very, very, very sorry. Maybe there are less traffic jams. I don't think so. Anyway, changing directions at low speeds is very easy. It's very quick. It could be even easier, but it's not like I would wish it was better. It's just fine. It's totally fine. So we already have an amazing engine and performance and great handling. Awesome, except for that heat. Then comes the suspension, which is manually adjustable. On one hand, it's a bit on a stiffer side, but on the other, that front fork is still soft on its own. So it dives when you brake. Also, the rear suspension gets interestingly floaty when riding straight and over some larger, let's call them bumps. It feels like a boat sometimes, yet it's not happening when you're in a turn somehow. So it's pretty much the opposite of what usually happens when the rear suspension is too soft. You can feel it becoming floaty when riding over a bump at some lean. But here, it is mostly visible when riding straight. Very interesting. Now, I wish that KTM added electronically adjustable suspension, or at least an option. Let's make it paid. I wish it was here on this bike, at least in the non-R variant, as it would complement the bike nicely. It would be also easier to understand the settings. It would be easier to use, quicker to use, and also at any time you would be able to, just play with it. Working with manual adjustment takes so much time to get it right for you, and after you get it there, if you get it there, you usually just leave it. But then changing it on different stretches of road to suit the road better, well, obviously you mess it all up, it's a pain. And here some competitors from other premium manufacturers give you an option of electric adjustment along with a lot of different settings that make a real difference. To have this bike closer to perfection, I would like to have it on it. Multistrada V2S has it and it's awesome there. Tiger 900 also has rear suspension adjustment via its onboard computer, but there actually does close to nothing. So not a big advantage there. Anyway, KTM, if you want to beat everyone everywhere, this, I think, should be added. The second thing that should be added is windshield adjustment that this 890 Adventure is missing. And it's an interesting story, actually, because the windshield here is too good. Yes, it can be too good if it looks like you can open a bottle with it. And also, if you're riding a KTM that first encourages you to play with it and push it to its limits, and to the bike's tires limits, and then it gets so hot that it makes you sweaty like having just visited hell. Then you would like to be able to get that airflow, but it turns out that this tall windshield is not letting a lot of it through. I wouldn't expect to ever say that, but in those circumstances, it is too good in protecting you from the wind. At higher speeds, there is still no turbulences, and you start getting that stream of wind smoothly hitting your helmet, but I wish I could just lower it for slower rides and hotter rides. Competitors, some of them at least, can do that. So overall, it is a compliment to the windshield, and I wish to get adjustment in the future, maybe with some update on KTM's side. And a word about that large piece of windshield. It looks a bit big on a bike and makes its face seem so large with those two tiny little eyes. I don't exactly love the way the front end of the bike looks, but from the side it looks quite slim and quite fit, with nice proportions and overall like a mature motorcycle. Looking from the front, something is, I feel, weird there with that lamp and the super wide deflectors of the windshield. This would be probably my #1 complaint next to heat problems. But design is a personal matter. We may modify the looks in some way if we really wanted to. And well, the shape of this windshield is what makes it do its job properly. The R version of this bike has this huge front fender that looks like Baba Yaga's nose. I do much prefer the looks of this non-R 890 Adventure. Now, there are 3 riding modes that you can fairly easily access via the onboard computer displayed on that 5-inch screen. It is directed at a certain angle up, so sometimes there would be some reflections, but who cares? There's nothing really to look at there, except for speed perhaps. Yes, you may try to look, but likely at some point you will just make your peace with having to lose your license. Yeah, it's this kind of a motorcycle. A calm adventure tourer for mature men. Yes. I kept the bike in street mode, and it wouldn't be too harsh at low speeds in terms of engine responses and engine braking, when precision of operating the throttle matters, and at the same time the power delivery is instant and there are no delays. That's helpful in roundabouts or some precise maneuvers. There's also rain and off-road mode, and rally if you equip the bike with such an extra paid option. The rev counter, like from new BMW cars, is unreadable quickly for me, so I would completely give up trying to even look at it. I do not like these sorts of shapes instead of something that's working best in the form of a circle. And if you've got a rally mode option and if you switch to it, which you cannot switch to it when you're on the road at all times, it becomes a circle then. But it's, again, not a road mode, so I wasn't able to fully really benefit from that display-wise. There is a USB outlet there as well. When revving, the reaction to throttle feels quite numb, but once you engage the first gear, it's totally fine. It's ride-by-wire technology, it gives you riding modes, it gives you cruise control, so there you have it. Actually, the bike can even have 2 heated seats as well. That's not thanks to ride-by-wire. It also can have heated grips. It doesn't come with them as standard, probably because the engine heats everything up very well on its own. It also doesn't come with a center stand and you would have to pay extra if you wanted it. I understand that it's sometimes not perfect if you are off-roading a lot, but well, I wonder how many do that. Actually, maybe a few can be doing that, so I would accept that explanation of not having the center stand as standard. Suspension travel in this non-R version is large, at 20 centimeters in the front and in the rear. Ground clearance stated by KTM is 23.3 centimeters, so plenty as well. The R version has more suspension travel at 24 centimeters, which is more than any big adventure motorcycle, I mean big ones. And the same goes for ground clearance, being 26.3 centimeters in the R, man! So it's more than the next most impressive in the large adventure bikes segment, so Honda Africa Twin 1100 with its 25 centimeters of ground clearance. Seat height of the 890 Adventure R, so the other one, is then 88 centimeters. So also like now in the larger 1290 Super Adventure R, also 88 centimeters. One thing to mention here, as so far I've been very sweet, is that the 890 Adventure that I got reached its first 1000 kilometers and I got a service light there, so you'll see that. Fine, but it being a new bike, it also had some front suspension issue. I do not know if it was just this particular bike, but its front suspension was banging. It was rattling. Something was sounding like it was very much loose there. It was the most noticeable when braking a little with the front brake engage when on uneven surface. That was worrying. I would call that clearly a defect. Please, if you've got the 890 Adventure, the non-R, let me know if this is how it always is. I guess we could live with it, but I'm sure that many of us would be annoyed by that, and I would notice it every single time myself, wondering what in the world is wrong this time. With my KTM, I had a similar rattle in my V-Strom 1000 long time ago. Yeah, life with a KTM, so much fun, and wondering here as well. Brakes of this bike are decent in my opinion, with the front one being strong enough to send the front of the bike to sniff the tarmac. That takes away the stability and control over the bike, but what do we expect having 20 centimeters of front wheel travel, something in exchange for something? I would play more with front suspension settings because of this, and I would try to make it stiffer. The rear brake was doing something, but I still would mostly use the front one, as otherwise I would have to twist my right foot a lot or just, lift my whole foot due to the high position of a brake lever. It's fine in terms of strength and ease of dosing, but due to diving front suspension, it isn't overall the nicest part of riding using the front brake. ABS seems to be cornering, but the front LED light, I believe, is not. Fuel tank is 20 liters that hang pretty low on the sides of the bike, making it look a little bit like a different version of a BMW R1250GS with that, boxer engine with the cylinders sticking to the sides. It is interesting, and it's clearly done to lower the center of gravity. Judging by how the bike handles, mission accomplished by KTM. They haven't installed a tire pressure monitoring system as standard, and I wish that it was there, as I feel that it's super important on any motorcycle. Come on, don't be an ass, KTM. Would you like to pay for every airbag in your car as well now? It's quite a similar thing here. What there isn't and cannot be added is keyless ignition and keyless fuel caps, one of my favorite features that some competitors in this segment do have. That's a bummer. It sounds fine though for this segment. Anyway, I could live with that. I like the sound. It's not that super quiet, and maybe it's because the muffler looks like taken straight from some other KTM dirt bikes in this case. It sounds fine. I would of course place it in a rubbish anyway, and I would install something aftermarket to shake the car's windows when passing by. And by the way, that mentioned earlier quick shifter is a paid option. And so is cruise control and a system called MSR, available also in the larger 1290 series, which prevents the rear wheel from locking itself and starting to slide if you release the clutch too rapidly after downshifting, and all that torque just would stop the rear wheel due to too large of a difference in speeds of the gear that you have selected, so it would prevent it from locking. $150 or euros for that. Thank you for the choice, KTM, but I'm not necessarily a fan of keeping such important but small things as paid options. Just come on, just give it to us. The rear wheel is propelled by a chain, so a standard solution in this segment. Just the Moto Guzzi V85 TT has a shaft drive. You may buy an additional device on your own or straight from KTM that will lubricate the chain on its own, and I think it's an addition worth paying for. So to sum up, there's a great engine in this 890 Adventure. It handles awesome. There's a good position and sitting comfort on it, but average suspension and average tech on board. Not much here in terms of extras, actually, including a non-adjustable windshield. And at the end of the day, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10 on Vitol's recommendation board, as it's crazy fun, but it lacks some equipment options that some competitors can have or do have. So now choose this KTM 890 Adventure or your love life. And definitely also check my 1290 Super Adventure R honest review linked in the description, as these two are very close to each other in terms of delivering everyday joy. Subscribe for more honest reviews and see you soon.